Hi, Dr. Lisa. I'm so excited to invite you to the show today. I've been following you on Instagram for quite a few years, actually, and it's amazing to have you join us. How are you today?
I'm doing so well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm just so passionate to share my experience, and it's such a and like I'll call it an odd experience because everybody comes to this differently. Everybody works their way through life and has their hardships and their stresses, and the way mine evolved into let's cut to the chase. This strange way of eating, this carnivore diet. I just think it's important to share experiences in case it might actually just, just trigger somebody to say, wow, you know what? This is something that has interests me, and let me dig deeper in this.
Good. And I would love for us to explore how that journey started because I know you've been carnivore for over a decade and that was not always the case. So, talk to us about before your carnivore days. What did you eat? How did you feel? What prompted you to make quite a dramatic shift?
Yeah, so I've been carnivore 16 years now, and I'm 60. So let's talk about when Lisa was 6, and Lisa got an easy bake oven, and Lisa had no idea there was such a thing as like sugar addiction, or it was really more I'll call it a carb processed food addiction, because sugar in itself is entirely different. Once you mix it with fat and flour and butter and salt, and you make the muffins, cookies, scones, and you make ice cream, right? Then that's very problematic. So I just through didn't realize it, but through my childhood, ride your bike to the 5 and 10 and get your pixie sticks and your Jolly Ranchers, and we could go on and on. And uh, segue into now grade school. Lisa's getting chubby, and I'm wearing the husky size from the department store called Sears that was very prominent and popular back then. And I then I will say, just kept going on with an ongoing struggle with my weight, and didn't want to be fat, and couldn't control my eating, but didn't understand why I wanted seconds and thirds when my mom made lasagna, because it wasn't just the desserts. It was the pasta, the rice, the breads. I had it all. It was something that I really struggled with, and it evolved into disordered eating, outright eating disorder, and just a fixation on trying to figure out how to stop that and how to not be overweight. So I will say it was a misery. I mean, it was all through college, all through grad school. And these kind of things get very secretive because nobody wants to binge in front of somebody else. You end up waiting till you're alone, or and then something you might have, you hide the wrappers. I mean, there's all these behaviors that are involved in a broken, disordered relationship with food, because it's rather humiliating when you feel like you cannot control yourself. So here's Lisa now, going through her doctorate degree and getting into her profession. And I am just seeking a solution, trying to figure out how and why. I never went into any sort of rehab, unit kind of thing, because nobody knew I had this problem. And I didn't want to expose myself. And I just felt, you know what? I'm a I'm a bright I'm a bright woman. I can figure this out. And so, to cut to the chase, long story short, so to speak, I was hunting, internet surfing. This was back before Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Um, I came across a forum, an internet forum out there called Zeroing In on Health, run by a gentleman named Charles Washington. They were a small group of people that had gotten kicked off of a low carb, a big prominent low carb forum. They had a thread in there that they named Zero Carb because they were all like, yeah, that Atkins thing worked great, up until they had you climb the carb ladder and then you put the weight back on. And they're like, why can't we just keep doing this forever? And then they kept doing research, and there's a lot of information from, ancestral times and from Villamar Stephenson, Not by Bread Alone, Fat of the Land. There were some people who were doing this for a long time. Owsley the Bear Stanley, who was the sound man for Grateful Dead, had been doing it like 40 years. And there was another couple, Joe and Charlene Anderson, who had been doing it like 20 years because he had sought out a solution to his wife's severe Lyme issue. And they found eating ribeye and drinking water. That's it. Eating ribeye, drinking water for their entire diet, breakfast and dinner, typically you just eat twice a day, was bringing her to health. And they even raised two children this way. And so we looked into all of this. And when I first found that group, and everybody kept their own journal that anybody else could read and comment in, there were people resolving multiple sclerosis, depression, anxiety, diabetes, arthritis. So many different things, obesity, skin issues, psoriasis, eczema. And there were two women in there writing how it resolved their eating disorder. And I said, holy moly, these people are crazy. They're eating meat and drinking water. I'm all in. If this is going to help this problem that I have been struggling with my whole life, I'm in. I'm going to start, and then I will research. And like I said, then that's when I saw there were a group of really intelligent people talking about why this isn't such a crazy thing. And ancestrally, as animals on Earth, what are we intended to do? Eat the meat, the fish. And then people could say, well, how about the vegetables? Well, you wouldn't be foraging for potatoes and eating a raw potato, right? And there isn't that much nutrient density. If they could hunt and catch an animal first, they certainly would be doing that. So I kept rolling all these thoughts in my head. And while I was doing that, I was feeling great. I was dropping some extra weight that I had, even though, like I said, I had an eating disorder. Now I was able to eat and nourish myself and stop the cravings and stop the disorder behavior. And that was worth everything to me. And lo and behold, I actually determined as we went through that this was actually a really healthy way to feed yourself. So that's really that's the long story short of it. And I'm sorry, it was a little long.
No, that's beautiful. You know what occurred to me when you were talking about your past history of binging? I was thinking about a lot of my clients that also have this binging and hiding behavior. You know, when you were talking about the packets, actually, one of my female clients told me in, this sort of confidential setting of a session that she even once blamed the kids because her husband confronted like how many packets were open, and she was just too embarrassed, and then of course the following day she just couldn't face the fact that she lied to her husband, and kind of came clean and told me how embarrassing that was to her. And it was a moment in time when she thought, this cannot go on when I'm now lying to my spouse, my husband, because I
Exactly.
can't even confront the fact that I'm eating effectively like a child and I'm hiding it, right? And I don't know about you, Dr. Lisa, but how often have you seen a woman binge on ribeye? We don't, do we?
No, that's what I say too. It's so comforting to know, like, I don't binge on shrimp. I don't binge on hard boiled eggs. I don't binge on ground beef. Like, it's amazing that, it's the combination typically of sugar and fat that together is not at all ever natural in on Earth, right? And when you have sugar, the fruit, you have the fruit, right? When you make it into apple pie, it's a whole different story, you know? So, uh, yeah, I think that part of part of that secretive behavior is so important to understand that there's something very wrong. You know, when you're hiding what you're doing, and I'm a big proponent of involving yourself, engaging in a group of some sort for support and accountability, and to be finally able to be open in talking about it. It's so freeing to understand other people suffer from this. And it's amazing for how many different interviews I do. I used to be pretty, I'll say like hesitant and embarrassed to talk about my lifelong issue with this. And it, it's very difficult for people to be open about it. And by my openness, I have had so many people come to me and say, it was such a relief to hear that somebody else understands. And it's what I'm doing. And now I'm understanding that I think it's more pervasive than we even think.
Oh, of course. And are we comfortable to dive into that before we talk about how good you feel now and what you do now? Can we spend a bit more time on your past? Because I really want to facilitate that dialogue and encourage the open conversation. We have so many women suffering from eating disorders, and I think we need to have more of those conversations. So can we spend a bit of time on your past before we go into your now?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
I was wondering, what was your version of your low point? Like I told you, my client hiding to her husband because she gets caught red-handed with packets and blame the kids. What about you? What are the time when you thought that was really spiraling down?
Yeah. Well, so specific to me, and this is very I've tried to analyze it now, being here and looking back at it. Okay, so I was full on outright bulimic, and the interesting but extremely difficult part about that eating disorder is you can hide your addiction. I wasn't obese, okay? So it's in a way where I say I've you have a hidden addiction because nobody's seeing me binge and nobody's seeing me grossly overweight. I would have been over 300 pounds had I not been bulimic. And so people who go have another route where they are just a binger. And I've even had people say to me, yeah, I tried to be bulimic, but I just couldn't do it. And I'm like, oh, I was champion. I was really good. Had myself just looking great on the outside, but miserable inside. And it was so secretive. Nobody knew. And when I say nobody knew, nobody knew.
Dr. Lisa, can I ask, for anyone who perhaps hasn't been diagnosed yet or doesn't understand the medical framework of bulimia, could you walk us through what that is and how that gets diagnosed, and what are the sort of parameters for somebody to be considered bulimic?
Yeah, well, so I was never quote unquote diagnosed because I never exposed it to anyone. And any doctor visits that I had done through my, whatever college and grad school, which I don't go to the doctor that much, fortunately, it didn't affect my health yet. Um, and you basically, it's you binge and then you purge. And there's what some people will call exercise bulimics. Well, they're binge and then they will run 8 miles a day for the next 5 days, or they will fast. So that's called binge restrict. So there's all different types of that binge disorder, binge eating disorder. They call it BED, right? But specific to bulimia is that you basically purge, you throw up. And it is one of those things where, like I said, it's completely secretive. You just wait till you get alone and make sure you have a large enough span of time for the binge and then the purge and off to the races. And then I could get myself to stop for, maybe I would get like a whole week under my belt and I'd be like, okay, I got this. And the next thing you know, I'm doing it, every day for the next 10 days. And it was uncontrollable from my side of it. I just so badly wanted to stop and just couldn't figure out how to stop. And part of why I think it's so um, embarrassing and humiliating to talk about to anybody who has not walked in your shoes, they don't understand, because they'd be like, I'm sure this would be the response. Well, just stop. Just don't do it, you know? And I just couldn't. And the fact that it was so easy, and it was like having your cake and eating it too, right? Because I wasn't outwardly, obese, and I had, as of yet, no health um, consequences. And so, yeah, that's where I was at. I just kept pursuing a solution. And, there's all sorts of, I tried doing, like they had some online Overeaters Anonymous. They even had a anorexic and bulimic Anonymous, an ABA group. And so for anybody out there who is potentially suffering from anorexia or bulimia, there are online, support groups, and that might be the answer for somebody. For me, it really wasn't until I was able to totally eliminate a food group that was toxic to me, that and realize that it was actually healthy to eat meat, seafood, eggs, and go on with my life, and have the support of a group that actually allowed me to blossom into a recovered eating disorder victim. And I just try, and I'm not here really to partly I love to spread the message that for people who are suffering from binge eating disorder of any type. I'm not talking specifically what I suffered, but I'm just saying this is pervasive. This isn't just any specific disordered eating. This is a broken relationship with food in
Mm,
any shape or form. And,
it is.
it comes down to I could just say, forget about the whole carnivore thing, because I'm not dogmatic about that. If you can moderate different food items, then awesome. I can't moderate pretty much most anything that is in a category of like a baked good. There's no such thing as me eating half of a cupcake or baking cookies and eating only two. I want to eat 22. Okay. And so we just don't bake cookies. um, and so, yeah, I feel like my message is, if I can just help one person out of that hellhole I was in, like I said, whatever type of disordered relationship with food, this is all worth it, because, like I said, it's kind of, it really is something that's such a difficult share, because of and for these things that are so secretive, you don't want anybody to know. But I felt like if I don't talk about it, then there's that many more people that are just going to hide in their shell of, disordered eating, and not realize that there's really an answer out there.
And I love that you just said that about the cookies. And I think this is so bold and so honest, because the truth is, when we have those eating disorder, we always gravitate towards the same toxic food to binge, right? We have binge food of choice. I see that time and time again. And in many ways, and I hope you don't mind me making this comparison, I feel like your new diet now is a form of you being sober from that addiction, right? A little bit like a recovered alcoholic would know that they can't have one glass because they'll have two bottles. You know, you can't have one cookie because you'll have 22. Do
Yeah,
you
exactly.
agree?
And
There is.
yeah, and interesting. So, um, segueing into my absolute adamant feeling that without a community, it's almost impossible to come out of this type of addiction. And so I formed a carb sober community. I call it Carb Sober, and because it's not all carbs, but in general, we kind of know when you hear the word carb, I'm talking about pasta, baked goods, ice cream, like those addictive kind of foods, chocolate, Um, and yeah, and here's an important thing when I talk about food plans and what is what is appropriate for you and what is safe for you to eat is just think to yourself, and I'm going to go about this talking about some foods that you might not think I'm going to bring up because you're thinking I'm baking, thinking about the Toll House cookie, chocolate chip cookie that you bake thing, right? And no, I have no sober behavior around those, but even something, and I've discovered this over time, and I don't know whether it just comes about from somebody who has such a disordered relationship with food, but I've realized now, like, if I will forget about a bowl of mixed nuts, if that's in front of me, all I'm thinking about is which one I'm having next. And it's not a handful, it's the bowl. And so that's not sober behavior. That's my mind who just keeps going at looking at that and thinking, all right, nope, don't have any more. All right, I'm going to have one more. All right, it's noise. Something as simple as a ball of fresh mozzarella. Okay, you think it's cheese, it's from a cow, it's healthy, it's carnivore. Well, Lisa, of course, the ends are the best part. So we've got them going, and then we just keep going. And then I'm like, okay, I better wrap this up and put it away. It's in the fridge now. It's calling my name. And I'm like, well, I might as well just finish it so I don't have to deal with it tomorrow. I don't have to, have that noise in my head. Now it's gone. And so interestingly enough, that term sober behavior is like, that's not sober behavior with that food. But do I have sober behavior with a steak or ground beef or salmon or scallops? Yeah, they're not screaming my name over there in the freezer for me to make more, right? Like those things, you can just tell you're calm around them. You eat them, they're delicious, and you move on. So I only,
Mm.
in my food plan, things that I know I've got sober behavior with.
I love that you said you're calm around them, right?
Yes.
Because how often do we not feel calm around a certain toxic food because we gravitate towards the more, and it's almost an endless bucket, right? There is no amount of ice cream tubs that's going to fill that void because there is always wanting more. And how many of us finish that tub and actually just want more, right?
Yeah, yeah. The pint of Ben and Jerry's is one serving,
Yes, that one. Of course it is, especially on a bad day.
Yep.
And so, walk us through the food or the food groups that you've discovered are allowing you and enabling you to be calm around. What is your go to and what are your no nos?
Yeah. So I have over time developed a way for me to understand what needs to be in or out of my food plan. And I just call it sober circles. And it's like the traffic light. There's a green circle, a yellow circle, and a red circle. And the reason I sort of evolved into figuring this out was because I would think that something's okay and then realize I didn't have sober behavior around it. So, what I do is in that green circle are things that I know are total A OK. The ribeye, the ground beef, scallops, shrimp, eggs. These are those things that I do not binge on ever. Okay. And they're a safe, they're total safe. And I could just stay right in that green circle and be okay. There's enough nutrient density in there for the rest of my life. But there's variety, there's social situations, there's friends, there's family, there's coworkers, there's holidays, right? There's other things, but we as, let's say, disordered relationship food eaters have to understand that, okay, now I'll tell you my yellow circle.
And
Boy, do Go
Dr.
ahead.
Lisa, perhaps before we go to the yellow circle, because I find this fascinating, can you tell us more about the green? I noticed you didn't mention lamb, pork, poultry. Is that intentional or
No,
because you
no. So basically, what I will say, you can just put meat in your
meat
green
in
circle.
general, non-processed? So,
Yeah, just say meat, eggs, seafood is basically my green circle. But but we have to, Charlene, here's the thing. Over time, Dr. Lisa has realized there's not full on sober behavior around bacon. If I make a pound
oh,
of bacon, I eat my 3 or 4 strips of bacon. And then when I get up and I'm putting stuff, well, the rest of the bacon's there, and Lisa picks it some more. And then I'm going to wrap it up. And because I always like to have leftovers in the fridge for quick grab, that bacon doesn't make it to the end of the day. So, again, so now here is my segue right into the yellow circle off what you just asked. Bacon, pork belly, that goes in the yellow circle. Yellow just means it has a parameter around it. And I will say that for the most part, I don't buy and keep bacon in my fridge or make it on any frequent basis. Some people do. Some people make it every day. They make 3 slices in their air fryer and they're fine. All good. For me, I just prefer to, my yellow circle means there's a parameter. If I'm at a restaurant and I'm getting a bacon burger, great. Why? Portion control. I can get a side of bacon at a restaurant. I can eat bacon when I'm out. I will allow myself bacon, freely when I'm on a trip. So
sure.
that yellow circle just becomes anything that needs a little cautionary, parameter set around it. Like some people will say pork rinds. Pork rinds are a great crunchy, salty snack for anybody who ends up trying this way of eating. Some people, it's fine. It's in the green circle. Others are like, oh, no, no, I'll eat the whole bag when I open it. So either it's a parameter where you say, I can weigh out 2 ounces and that's what I get. That's the parameter. Or I boot it into the red circle and say, you know what? I'm really not thinking there's much nutrient density. What am I doing snacking anyway? Snacking is an emotional event. Snacking is something we do for entertainment or to fill an emotional void. So let's just kick that into the red circle. Just like some people will do with alcohol. That's a uh, whole nother topic. And some people, it's been in their red circle for a very long time and they're recovered alcoholics. And we could even segue into the whole aspect of cross addiction because many recovered alcoholics cross addict onto sugar.
Of course.
Yeah.
And drugs and
Yeah.
sex and many others.
Yeah, right. It could be a process addiction, a substance. There's so many complicating factors with this, but realizing that and understanding why something might need to be in that red circle. Likewise, some people who are, let's say, in my groups and being coached into full on carnivore, um, find that they are starting to have a little more often red wine at night with their spouse and that it's okay if I'm just occasionally have a drink here or there, but realizing coming off of all of their other food substance removal with this way of eating, they now, what are they doing? They're getting their sugar hit because even though you're not drinking a sugary drink, let's face it, alcohol gets broken down into sugars and it hits the same dopamine centers and that whole thing is I know I kind of segued off of your question about
No,
the
this
green
is great.
circle, but it's so complex to start really digging into your relationship with really all of your external, let's say, triggers, right? Because there's so many, and it's so worthwhile to compartmentalize where you fit with each of these things. Now, whether you're going like into a low carb, keto, carnivore, and some people might be who are listening, I will say you have this you really have to think about, for how many people I've coached over the past 15 years. Um, there's this thing with keto, and there's keto treats. There's keto cookies, keto candy, keto tiramisu, keto cheesecake, and there's
Keto pancakes.
keto waffles, keto pancakes. And there's two sides to this as far as the benefit of that is that it can at least segue people off of what I call the standard atrocious diet. That SAD diet is usually called standard American diet, but I like to just say standard atrocious diet. So it applies worldwide because this is a worldwide problem.
So that's the donuts, the fries, the seed
Yeah,
oil, the canola, the soybean oil,
yeah,
all the
just pretty much
awful.
living in the standard packaged foods, quick, easy grab kind of things. And I'll even just say, simple things like, just the pizzas and, yeah, just pretty much anything where it's not what an animal, a human on Earth hundreds of thousands of years ago would be eating, because it's processed. The flour to make the pizza dough is processed from wheat, and we never would have been, it's not natural to our bodies. So yeah, it's really interesting when you start digging deep into your relationship with not just food, but it expands into all different aspects of your life. Because I've noticed a thing with, like, let's say triathletes. They are addicted to the hours of training. And people could say, well, at least that's a healthy addiction. Well, to a certain extent, you could say maybe yes, but to what extent do their families suffer because they're so obsessed with getting all of the training in? And people absolutely, have an exercise addiction, some, right? And
Yeah.
so it's hard to say, okay, well, we need a balanced life, and where are we going with this? And then we segue into we meditation. Our connection with nature and earth is so important, and we could get into the whole circadian rhythm, because I'm so big on that for, um, outright health reasons, but also as an eye doctor, I'll talk about these, the blue blocker glasses. And I don't know how much, you get into or know about the circadian rhythm, and how we should be every single day exposing our eyes to sunrise sunlight. We should be getting up with the sunrise and being outside. Hopefully, you can for a good 30 minutes, even if you can only get 5 minutes, but it's got to be not with glasses on, not through a window. It has to be just exposure, outside. And how important that is to set your circadian rhythm, to improve your sleep that next night. It's so interesting. And, you know, all of these things I have really come to understand through all my years. And I do deep, deep down the rabbit hole dives into a lot of different things to try to optimize my health. We all want quality of life, right? Going forward. And, you know, you could have 1,000, problems in your life that you're dealing with. But if one of them is your health, now you really only have one problem.
Yeah.
So, it's just to understand how critically important it is that we pay attention to this stuff, and what we eat and what we do on a day to day basis, between strength training, some cardio, paying attention to the light, getting outside as much as possible. We are creatures of, all of nature, animals, we are of one. We now, in our modern world, spend about 93% of our day indoor, and indoor under artificial light, the fluorescent lighting, the LED recess lighting, the computer screens, the phone screens, the TV screens, the tablet screens, all actually really toxic for our bodies. Naturally, the only thing that should be going into our eyes and on our skin is sunlight, moonlight, firelight, candlelight, right? Those are natural to earth. Incandescent light would be the next in that line of lists that I just listed, because incandescent bulbs at least had a full spectrum of light emissions, whereas that sort of kind of got outlawed, and the all the other light sources are so skewed to the blue light end of the spectrum that we've fallen into a situation where it's so unhealthy. Our eyes, I always thought, and this is crazy, like as an eye doctor, we're so fixated going through school about learning about every aspect of the eye and vision, and how the eye functions, right? Well, the eyes are not just for vision. I'm like, who'd have thunk that? Like, really? Ears for hearing, eyes for seeing, right? This is just, basic stuff. Oh, no, no, no. Au contraire. When we're in utero as an embryo, our skin, our eyes, and our brain all come from the same layer and are interconnected. And that's why it's so critically important to understand the eyes are not just for vision. The eyes are actually connected to the brain, and the messages that are received from the full spectrum of sun get signaled to the pineal gland and the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the SCN. I know this is getting a little technical, and I don't know if we want to
This is
go there.
great. Go
Okay.
go there.
Okay. I'm going to keep going because I'm so passionate about making sure people understand the importance of this, of what I'm saying here, that spending as much time as you can outside is the healthiest thing. The sun does not cause skin cancer. The sun does not cause cataracts. The sun does not cause macular degeneration. I know that's going to be a big what? What is she talking about? It's so important to understand that. And there's so much information about it, but it's so hidden. Why? Because of money, and the American Dermatology Association. They make big bucks on all the lotions and creams, and they've got their pockets in all the sunscreens. Sunscreens are toxic. So aside from the toxicity of the chemicals of the sunscreen, which I fully believe does not belong on your skin, what you put on your skin absorbs into your bloodstream. And I'll just cite this one study that I found so fascinating. They did an application of sunscreen, and then, let's say on Monday, and then for the entire next 7 days, no sunscreen. 1 week later, the chemical was still able to be detected in that person's blood. So don't think for a minute that this stuff is just surface and preventing a burn, right?
It's not.
It's
I
not.
use natural beef tallow that has all the natural
Yes, like the
minerals.
nano titanium dioxide stuff. But
Exactly.
yeah, so I will go one step further past that, because of the deeper dive that I keep doing. And I'm all for not burning, but we have to understand what is actually going to develop your solar callus to tan and tolerate sun, which is partly exposing yourself to that morning early sunshine, and then starting to expose yourself to the daylight. Even somebody who's a redhead um, can actually develop this and start to tan and not burn. And so here's my thing with even any type of sunscreen, even natural sunscreen, that is blocking certain parts of the spectrum to try to prevent the burn. But realistically, we want the full spectrum of the sun hitting our eyes and our skin and not being blocked. But so for me, if I basically I never use sunscreen. And what happens though, I can't spend 4 hours on a beach with the sun reflecting off the sand, right? Yes, I will end up burning, even though I've got a nice dark tan because I work at it like it's my job. But it is one of those things where I will seek shade. I will wear a hat or a visor. because we could get into this. I think I'm one of a very, very rare breed of eye doctor who will actually recommend that you do not wear sunglasses. Sunglasses tell your brain it is nighttime. You do not want to tell your brain it's nighttime. When you wear sunglasses, you're not giving your brain the signal like, whoo, there you're at high noon here. Let's protect the skin. It doesn't do that, right? With the sunglasses on, you are more likely to burn because you're not getting the signal that the sun is where it's at and how strong it's at. So that's one reason. And then another reason is really you want the full spectrum of the sun actually getting to your in your eyes to your brain, and the sunglasses hinder that. And then people say, no, my eye doctor told me I have to wear my sunglasses to protect my eyes and blah blah blah. There's so much information, and I'll give you your viewers a name, and I'll try to get the link to a couple people that are totally into explaining in depth why the sun does not cause skin cancer, and actually the regions further away from the equator have a higher melanoma incidence. And I know people will just say, well, she's a quack, she don't know what she's saying, because everybody is so brainwashed to think you got to put SPF on. It was a huge marketing campaign from L'Oreal, and it was L'Oreal and I believe Nescafe. There were two companies that were all positioned to make a ton of money if they set this fear into everybody that we have to avoid the sun. So, women's cosmetics, everybody thinks you got to have UV SPF protection in your makeup. And I'm like, ooh, no, do not put that on. First, you don't want the chemicals, and also you don't want it blocking. So, I mean, people say, well, what about the wrinkles? What about this? And what about that? You need to pay attention to red light, the morning light. And if you don't have the ability because of your schedule or where you're at to get sunrise sunlight, then get yourself a red light unit. It's really impactfully helpful for the collagen, for the wrinkles. I mean, I don't know. I'm 60 and I feel like I'm pretty, and I've been a sun worshiper pretty much my whole life. And I'm thinking, well, hot diggity dog, I did something right, even though I thought at the time it was bad. But yeah, I'm not full of wrinkles. Yeah, we're hopefully all going to age gracefully, but no, it's not the sun that does it. My skin is not leathery. Why? I don't eat anything that comes in a box, a bag, a bottle, or a jar. I avoid all the seed oils, even at restaurants, and we could get into that. I just say, look, I am allergic to oils. Can you please cook my food in butter? These restaurants, even high-end steakhouses, will spray the meat
Oil.
with this some sort of what they call like grill whatever, just so that it doesn't stick to the grill, so that you get the nice grill marks. But I don't want it on my meat.
Hand spray. Oh, that gives me so
Yeah,
much anxiety when I see it on eggs and things.
yeah, it's crazy. All right, I know I went on like 10 different tangents
No, no,
there,
no,
but
no. Let's unpick a few things because I actually have questions for you. So I've been in the biohacking community for quite a few years now. So I learned a few years back, I think it was about 5 years, that using sunglasses is not such a good idea, and for all the great reason that you did give. But I do have to say, and I would love your view on that. I've minimized the usage since hearing that, but having been recently to the Great Barrier Reef, to run in the Algerian Sahara, to very extreme hot weather, especially doing sports, either water sports or high intensity cardio and races. I have to be honest, Dr. Lisa, I had to wear sunglasses,
yeah.
and
Oh,
it
yeah.
was actually painful not to. So I think there is maybe like
Yeah. So Charlene, let me back up. So the blanket statement about sunglasses really are not ideal. That's the typical. We're talking about, and I know there's people. I have a friend. It's like just to take the trash out, she's putting the sunglasses on. Take the
right.
dog for the walk. The sunglasses go on. It's like you've been so, really fully entrenched in this thought that we have to avoid the sun. The sun is bad, block the sun, both the skin and the eyes. It's just crazy. So that's what I'm talking about. Now, let's go into your comment there. So, you know what? If you're a pilot, put on the dang sunglasses. We don't want you bothered by the glare, depending on the direction that you're flying, right? If you are, a high altitude hiker, if you are on the snow and there's reflection off the snow, let's say you're skiing for the entire day, it's beautiful March skiing and it's sunny, and yeah, you could get an actual, solar burn. I mean, this is crazy. Like, I'm not talking about, and fishermen on the water. You're on the water all day. You're out exposed. It's reflecting off the water. Yep,
And
totally.
the desert. I
Yeah,
learned
the
this in
sand. The
Algeria.
beach, the beach, the sand, same thing. Reflection off of the sand is
It's
similar
very
to what that's
strong.
in. So, so what I do when I'm at a beach is I am, typically for a couple hours just able to be out and swimming and just sunning on the beach. I will then, with no sunglasses, and then I will retreat under an umbrella or a nice, beautiful set of palm trees, and sometimes just have a visor on to block some of the glare, but I'm in the shade. So that's how I do it. But if I'm on a boat all day, like fishing, or I'm not capable of getting into the shade, absolutely. Yeah. That's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up, because people will say that, like, well, but okay, try being in the middle of the, Australian, whatever, and you got to have them on. So yeah, there's a time and place. Don't throw your sunglasses out.
Out of curiosity, because I can't get to the bottom of that question, is it safer to wear sunglasses if you're looking at the sunset or the sunrise? Because I'm a sunset and sunrise worshiper wherever I go around the world.
No sunglasses at that situation.
No, you can
No.
safely look at the
Yeah.
sunrise and
So
the
we're
sunset.
not, yes, we're looking outward toward the horizon and we are seeing the beautiful sunrise or sunset. We see it. We're not staring and fixating and bullseye, like literally just keep staring at the sun. No, we are gazing out in the direction east at the sunrise or west at the sunset, but you just want to look outward in that direction with no sunglasses on. This is the most beneficial UVA, infrared, red and infrared, not UVA and UVB come later when the sun is at a higher. So scratch that. It's the red infrared that you want to soak in. It's so important. And, and I will tell people, we could just get onto a little side thing with prescription glasses. Clear prescription glasses, almost universally, because of the type of plastic, the type of polymer that's used for these glasses, block UVA and UVB. It is not the sunglass that actually does, the UVA, UVB blocking. Clear prescription glasses. So I tell people, lift them up when you're gazing out to the sunrise and the sunset. If you can, it depends on how bad your prescription is. And just take a seat outside then and without the glasses on. Because just remember, like I said, they're high index. It's called polycarbonate. The types of polymer plastics that they use for clear prescription glasses block, most of them, 100% of the UV. So that's why I am telling people, to get the benefit, you need to take them off. Contact lenses. Let's just do a quick aside onto the contacts. Most companies now proudly will advertise their UV protection. They put um, components into the polymer of the contact to block the UV. So I will intend, because yeah, so there are a few different ones that you can find that do not have the UV blocking in them, and so, but they're few and far between.
Would you prefer those, the ones without the UV blocking?
Absolutely.
And this may be a bit of a rabbit hole, so stop me, but I've been going down that hole now for a few months because I heard it at a conference and I couldn't wrap my head around it. I heard that lenses, contact lenses, actually contain a lot of microplastic naturally because of the composition, which may not be ideal for daily usage. And that really just concerned me because I don't like to wear my vision glasses every day, particularly when working online. And particularly because I love to use, like you, my yellow blocker. And I'm sure you know that having two glasses on top of each other is not a good look. So
I
what I
know.
do is my lenses, and then I have my yellow glasses, which are my blockers. But
Overkill.
I mean, having my vision glasses and my yellow blocker just is ridiculous.
I know, I know. So a solution to that is depending on the company. So I'll send you the link for this company. They do no prescription. They do reader prescription, like a +2 or a +1.25, I think, are the options, and they do custom prescriptions that you can have your prescription put right into these. So
So that's good. I can continue to use them while not having microplastic in my eye.
yeah. So aside from the microplastic issue, and
And
I've
is this true, Dr. Lisa? Is
well,
that a
I've
real
attempted to
concern?
go down the road of trying to figure out the issue with actually with the plastics because in general, it's interesting. So I know since you say you're a biohacker, you're full on with you don't store warm or hot food in a plastic container. You don't heat
Nope.
anything, right? It's like, oh no, right? So think about this. We're putting a piece of plastic on our warm, wet eye, right?
Indeed.
So that's the thought, right? But that's not the information that I've dug into. That's only my thinking. Like, yeah, we're avoiding the contact with the food, especially the warm or hot in the plastic, right? And so it was my own logic that says, okay, maybe there's something with that. But I have not actually found studies that say, like, is the plastic leaching from the contact? Like, I haven't been able to find that because who's going to spend money to try to do that study, right?
That's right.
And it's like a multi-billion-dollar industry, the contacts, right? But let's just talk about another separate aspect of the contact. And I will tell you, I feel your pain, Charlene, because you know
Right.
what? Here's my thing. So I have had perfect vision my whole life. Just so lucky, 20/20 at distance. Then fast forward, it wasn't until I was about 50 to 55 range right in there that I started having the trouble with, my arms aren't long enough. I need a magnifier, right? When I started needing that. So what I do is I fit myself into what's called monovision. And on your non-dominant eye, everybody's got a dominant and a non-dominant, you put a reading prescription. So for me, that means I wear nothing on my dominant eye because it sees great distance. My non-dominant eye, I pop a contact on that has my reading prescription in it. And I love it. I see perfect all day. It does not bother me at all. People are like, oh, isn't that weird? I'm like, not weird at all. I can see to drive perfectly. I can see the computer perfectly. But as I'm starting to dig down these rabbit holes, Charlene, I'm like, ooh, contacts are really not ideal. And not just because of the sun UV blocking issue, and not because of the issue we just brought up with the plastic on the eye issue, but there's a whole other issue with having this on the eye. It lowers the amount of oxygen that gets to your eye. Now, granted, the materials that they use now are very permeable to oxygen, but there are recently discovered receptors within the cornea, neuropsin. So there's opsin, neuropsin. These are different receptors that are not for vision. They are for receiving the light messages. And optimally, I will say, yeah, because of the oxygen issue and because of the receptor issue, that's why I really advise people do not get LASIK. It severs corneal nerves when they do that procedure. And some people have debilitating lifelong dry eye issues from that. But it is also altering the structure of the cornea because you're actually lasering, part of the cornea and the effect that it would have on these receptors. We could just keep rolling down the rabbit hole, because then the next thing is people say, well, what about cataract surgery? I already had my lens removed and everybody gets a intraocular lens implanted so that you can see, or else you'd have to wear these really thick glasses. And it's just crazy ridiculous. They don't do that anymore because we have these
Sure.
beautiful implants, right? Well, guess what these companies do that make these implants? They make them so they're UV blocking, right? So that person now surgically has this almost like a sunglass in there, right? And then they start going down the rabbit hole and they write to me, what do I do? What can I do? Oh my God. And I was like, you know what? You just go forward. You just still expose your eyes because it will absorb the sclera, the white part, the conjunctiva. You're just do the best you can. We can't sweat the things we don't have control over. You're not going to go in and have them take that implant out. So just get your mind out of that. I would just highly recommend doing the red light therapy still, which actually has a penetration. It doesn't just do the surface. It actually gets through your skin to your bone. It's really beneficial. Doing that and then also still blocking the artificial lights. And that's as best as we typically can do.
Now, I have an anecdote story, and I know that when I tell that stories to even eye doctors, they're skeptical, even though I have the proof on paper. So can I get your honest feedback on it?
Sure.
Because this is my story, and there was a life before and a life after. I like to think of my career as sort of split into chunks, and chunk one was me as a high flying lawyer, spending all those hours at my desk working on documents, eating a terrible diet that revolved around midnight deliveries at my desk, processed food, you name it, I had it, skipping meals, but not in a sort of nice biohacking, intermittent fasting type of way, more of
Yeah.
a binge and forget and stress and snack and birthday cakes in the office and over caffeinated and takeaway cups with microplastic and microwave and, all the things that are big no-nos. I did them, and I did them on steroids. And that was my life then. And I was actually very short sighted, to the point that my glasses had quite an intense prescription level. Not, off the charts, but quite intense. And now there is this second life, sort of chunk two of my career, where I still work using computers, of course, but I really manage my light by doing red light in the morning. I have a red light panel in France. I have a red light panel in the UK. I use it. I look at sunrise and sunset. As I said, it's something that I really learn about my circadian rhythm. Unlike you, I'm not full carnivore, but I'm full primal. So I only eat hunter-gatherer style food. I don't eat processed food. I've removed all the processed food, and I eat a lot of meat, and my diet is predominantly meat based with a bit of fruits and honey and a couple of natural starches. And guess what my eye prescription is now? Close to none. Like, I have the tiniest short-sighted prescription, still much more comfortable for me to wear lenses or glasses because it's like the nice comfort. But honestly, I can see without. When if you ask me that 10 years ago, back when I was a lawyer, it would have been extremely uncomfortable. I have it on paper. I'm not making it up, but people raise eyebrows when I tell that story. Is it actually possible that my
Oh,
eyesight has improved?
yes, I'm going to say absolutely. And I'll tell you this, I'm in a position where, because I have been really in this, I will just call it this biohacking world, because anytime you're in keto, carnivore, paleo type eating, it segues out into a lot of different things. And being an eye doctor, I have people who write to me and say, I changed my eating for my arthritis issue. And now, it ends up my glasses were too strong. And I went to the eye doctor, and lo and behold, they had to reduce my prescription. And I've heard that over and over. I've heard people resolving floaters. I've heard people who have had early cataracts reversing. Of course, their diabetes reversing. So any diabetic retinopathy will improve. But absolutely, I have had many people report their prescription changing. And a lot of it has to do with the when I feel when you removed the processed foods and removed the seed oils, that there are beneficial changes that happen within not just our eyes, every organ system. Typically, the skin clears up, prescriptions can reverse, joint pain goes away, inflammation goes down, depression, anxiety improves. So I'm not here to be dogmatic about any plan of eating, because I will eat on occasion avocado, olives, sauerkraut. I mean, there's things like, so you could say, well, she's really not carnivore, but yeah, basically, my food revolves really clean whole foods, and that's all I'm saying. That, I'm not here to profess anybody should eliminate certain foods, as long as you've got sober behavior around them and you've determined that they're nutrient dense. We could get into organs. I don't like liver. I don't really eat liver,
Oh,
but
I'm an
should
organ girl. I love them. I
yeah, see, I'm not an
love
organ girl, but I have there's a seasoning called Pluck. It's amazing.
yes,
It's got
the liver
heart,
in it.
thymus, liver, kidney, and spleen in it, dehydrated, ground with some beautiful other spices that hide the organ flavor for me. But yeah, there's so many different things that we can do, that just to clean up your diet, spend time outdoors, get some good. I do intermittent power walking, where my walks, every 3 minutes, I go from a comfortable pace for 3 minutes and then into a high speed, as fast as I can walk, pace back to 3 minute comfortable. It's called Japanese interval walking. I did a YouTube video on it because I found it fascinating. Their study showed 30 minutes of doing that was more beneficial than the group of people that walked 10,000 steps.
Wow.
So it's like, but all of these
That's
things.
good for busy lawyers who have no
Yes,
time and every
yes.
minute
So
is
I'm
so
telling
important.
you, let's put a link to that in the notes to that video I did, because
Yeah, let's do that.
it's fascinating. I show the statistics about blood pressure reducing more in that group than the 10,000 steppers. And I've had so many people write to me and said, I'm so glad you did this video. It's amazing. My husband and I are doing this now, and we feel so much that we got so much more out of the walk. And so, yeah, but once you do a lot of different things, I really do truly believe our bodies are on a mission to be healed and evolve. So any damage we've done from our garbage diet and garbage lifestyle is absolutely reversible, and you can start seeing so many benefits from it.
And for you, was the reason why you decided to go further than keto or further than primal or further than paleo and to go flexible carnivore? Let's call it flexible
Yeah,
carnivore,
carnivore adjacent.
carnivore adjacent. Was it because of those sober behavior and those triggers, or was it because of the health benefit and avoiding the exposure to other toxins, etc., or was it a combination of the two?
Yeah, Charlene, this is so interesting, because I will say that we're all on a journey here of figuring it out, right? And it's evolving for me. It's still evolving for me, because, I was in a certain point of hearing, if you listen to Sally K. Norton, and she's so impressive on her knowledge with oxalates. And she has a book, it's amazing, it's called Toxic Superfoods, and which foods really have a high amount of oxalates in this plant food, right? So
Can you
um,
explain oxalate for
yeah,
our audience in case they're not familiar with it, please?
yeah. Well, so for sure, look up Sally K. Norton and dig into it. But there are we would just call it an anti-nutrient. It's something that they're like razor sharp, and they can embed all throughout our bodies. And when you stop eating all high oxalate foods, they will actually start coming out through your skin, through the corners of your eye. Like, it's crazy when you really dig into it. But if you have a history of veganism, vegetarianism, or heavy juicing of spinach, kale, if you ate a lot of almonds. There's a lot of foods, even chocolate, high in oxalate, black tea. So those type of people need to be a little cautious when if they eliminate those food groups. But I'm pointing that out because just as I was going along in this way of eating, just learning about phytates, lectins, oxalates, things that are in plants that are trying to protect them to stay on earth, right? That's their defense. So, did they really belong in my body? So then I got this, overall feeling like, I really don't need to eat vegetables, don't want to eat vegetables because technically they all have something in them that, is trying to keep them here on earth. And, you can listen to Dr. Anthony Chaffee and he'll say plants are trying to kill you. And so I kind of got, into that whole mindset that I'm doing so well with meat, seafood, eggs, and limited dairy. Dairy is not my friend. It is inflammatory. It's not good if you have autoimmune issues, and it's not good if you want to lose weight. So heavy cream, sour cream, any types of milks and cheeses are not your friend if you want to lose weight or if you have any autoimmune issue like thyroid, dry eye, arthritis. There's lots of conditions that it's beneficial to eliminate. One of my favorite friends, cheese. But raw
Dr.
cheese.
Lisa, up until now, I loved you, and just suddenly I stopped loving you.
Now we crossed the line. Well,
Now
okay,
we're
wait,
frenemies.
wait. Let me save myself here.
I am French, remember? Like
Yes,
I drink
let
raw
me
milk.
okay, let me save myself here. Raw milk, if you can get it. We have a hard time here in the States getting that, but would be ideal. Raw cheeses, raw sheep
Mm.
cheese, raw goat cheese, raw cow cheese. It's available, not readily, not in our standard supermarkets. In France, probably. I would love to come to France one day. I've never been.
Oh, and then you'll drink the kind of milk we get with the milk cream
Absolutely.
on top,
And
and
the
it is
cheeses and the cheeses. Oh my God,
oh.
I'm such a blue cheese fanatic. And so then we could go into ferments, and fermented things are actually have a health benefit. And so, yeah, I find blue cheese to be, and partly also because I don't binge on blue cheese. It's so intense in flavor. I use it like as an accent. Or I will, oh, it's so good just to mix it in with some ground beef. um, so yeah, but in general, for here, the typical cheeses and heavy cream, it's all pasteurized and homogenized and garbage. So I shouldn't speak out of place here because I'm sure you can get much better quality and do fine with it. And if you're able to moderate it.
Sure.
But I do caution, though, for most people, the high fat content and the casomorphines are addictive. There's actual studies about casomorphines in cheese, and it converts into a type of opioid, and hence why Dr. Lisa can be a little off the rails with some cheese.
But I think it's a very common thing. I've had many clients actually have like little cubes of cheese being binge of choice.
Oh my gosh, yeah. But then
Mm.
I fry it, I melt it, I tell you, I go off the rails, making all sorts of different concoctions, baking it into these crisps and mixing it first with bacon bits or pepperoni and baking it into like crackers. Oh, yeah. No
Definitely
sober
not sober
behavior.
behavior. Yeah, no.
Nope.
I can see why it's in your yellow, amber,
Yellow
orange
circle. Yeah,
circle.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's in that yellow circle. Yep, for
Sounds a
sure.
bit more orange red to me than yellow green for
Yeah,
sure.
it's not green.
It's not green.
Not green.
Dr. Lisa, I would love to just ask you two more things, if I may. One is, what would you like our listener to take away if they could listen to just one thing and remember one thing and change one thing in their diet based on what you've said today? And the second is, how do you want our audience to get into your world?
Okay, so that one thing I would say to take away is just really think to yourself that term that I brought up, sober behavior, right? What do I feel peace and freedom with in my food plan and what causes me a little distress, thinking, oh, I shouldn't have it. I shouldn't have too much of it. Like, remove those things. You can enjoy life without, that subset of foods. And as far as getting in touch with me, I'm so passionate about my group. So I'll give you the link if anybody wants to join into my carb sober community. I go live 3 to 4 times a week, every week for the past 5 years with my group members. It's just a month to month. You can pop in for a month, and there's recordings, like 150 if you really need the support. So I have that. Plus, there's a whole lot of information in there about cholesterol and fasting. And I've done some dry fasting myself, which I found fascinating. There's so much information. And I got to add one more thing, Charlene, because this is my
Please.
latest passion. So I've been kind of known to be, they call me the queen of meetups, meetups being MEAT. It's just people who are in this world of understanding a animal-based diet is really ideal. And we gather together, whether it's specific one day event, but I now host what I call carb sober cruising. So you just come on a cruise with me. I had 150 people this past February who came on a cruise. I got the cruise line. They sat us all together for dinners. I got them to not have any seed oils in our food. And it was just great community to spend time and sharing experiences and stories and health journeys and all that. So, and I'm also doing an all-inclusive trip to Cancun for the landlubbers who don't want to be on a cruise ship. But I have 5 upcoming cruises. And I'll give you the link that anybody can click on and see if they want to join me. I'd love, love, love to have you.
Sign me up.
All right. I hope you come.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Say no more. I'm a water baby. So,
Yeah.
if you say cruise and meat, they're probably two of my favorite things in the world. I'm
Yeah.
in.
And think about this, Charlene. This is really where my idea came out of. On a cruise ship, you get unlimited meat, seafood, and eggs because they don't care how much. You can order 3 steaks if you want. They don't care. Shrimp cocktail, escargot. Ooh, escargot.
Oh,
Got
there
a French
go.
one in there, right? So there's that. And we also have this beautiful aspect of being out in the sun and nature. We do early morning walks up on the walking track on the top of the ship, get off at port. We hang out on a beach together or go on an excursion. And it's just such a beautiful way of living a healthy life and doing it together to have support. I have people come up to me at the end of the cruise and said, I have never been on a vacation that I didn't go off the rails, go home, gaining weight and being inflamed. This is amazing. I'm just so happy. And yeah, it's because, every moment of every day, we have 100% control of what goes in our mouth. And I say it either leads to health or harm. It's your choice. It's not easy. The rules are simple, but it's not easy.
I love it. I'm definitely going to look up the cruise. And is the cruise female only, or is it
No, no, no. I've got,
inclusive?
and what's beautiful about, I've been finding an added benefit is people who come on with their partner, their spouse, or partner in life, whatever, right? Come on. And that partner might be one of those hesitant, all right, you eat your way. That's a little crazy. I'll just keep eating my way. But at least it exposes them to the fact that, look at all these other people that eat a little bit wacky, like my partner here. And you start to hear all of the amazing healing stories. And so it more normalizes it. So everybody's welcome, whether you eat animal based or not. You could have a partner who's vegetarian. They're welcome. You can get whatever kind of foods you want. And it's just to really, really to bring in the community and to feel this magic. I say it's magical when we get together and just share our experiences.
I love it. I'm so glad you've shared that. And I will definitely eat meat with you on a boat. And I'm so glad that you brought this up as a gift to the community. And I'm so glad to share the link because I get asked all the time, why do you eat meat? Like genuinely, my clients, people in my community. And that's always prompted by, oh, but you're a clinical therapist, you're a health coach, you're a yin yoga teacher, you're a yoga teacher. Surely you're vegan, you're vegetarian, you eat meat, and I'll be the first one at a restaurant with clients. It happened to me even just a few weeks ago when I was in the States. It's like, yeah, I would like to go in a steak house, please. And if we go anywhere, I'll be the first one to order the big chunk of meat. And I have to say, it surprises folks because there is almost that psychological association that if you are in the health world, if you're not in the biohacking community, I would say the sort of more society general health world,
Mhm.
then you must be vegan or you must order a kale salad. Not quite. That is literally the last thing I'll order on the menu.
Good for you. It's not healthy.
I actually
Kale is a big marketing campaign. It's not healthy.
no. I love my meat. I eat my meat, and I think that it's so accessible. I actually wrote an ebook about this to literally answer the question why I eat meat, and I gave 20 reasons. So if you want, I'll send you a copy, and I'll
Yes,
put the link as well,
that'll
so
be
we can
great.
be part of the meat up community, and anything that I can contribute towards encouraging people to eat more meat, count me in. So here we go. Dr. Lisa, thank you so much. I'm so grateful for our time today. It's been a pleasure, and I really can't wait to go on that cruise with you. So let's do it.
Yeah, let's make it happen. Thanks so much for having me. And I'm like I said, I'm passionate to try to spread my experience. Just to, if it can help somebody, it's just worth it.
Thank you, Dr. Lisa. See you soon.